Hello, everybody. It is your Professor Rocco, your boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. In this class, we will be talking about the combat phase and a little bit about Battleshock, too, because I don't think Battleshock really needs its own video. I might be mistaken, so this one might be a little bit longer than the rest in the series. And then we move on to other topics like the General's Handbook, the new battle tactics, all that fun stuff. All right, but first, remember to leave a like. If you're liking what we're doing, share this video with your friends if you want to help them learn Age of Sigmar. Or don't if you want to just find a way to beat people because you're gonna listen to this and then they'll be like, "Oh, hey, that Rocco guy, Professor thing, he got pretty good videos," and you just slowly like push away your computer where you're watching this, and then he's like, "Yeah, yeah, good videos. Never heard of. Is that why you're so good?" Yes, it is, because you've been watching this. So, talking about the combat phase here, the first thing that I am guilty of this myself, I think everybody that plays this game is remembering your own buffs and debuffs that are put onto your units, you put onto other people's units, which is why when I do play, I use tokens. Um, I'll write stuff down during the game. I keep a little notebook. And I will say when I activate a unit, everything that I am aware of that it is doing. I'm like, yeah, I get +1 to wound from this spell from earlier. It gives out -1 attacks when you target it. So when I select the unit, I say all the stuff it does. And then I ask, like, do you have anything that makes me be debuffed? Because I would rather know everything going in, then like halfway through the combo, like, oh man, my guy did -1 to wound. Can we do the rest of the things here? Can you just re-roll the whole thing? Being honest with your opponent really does remove a lot of awkwardness in the game, and then it just ends up being a fun game everyone plays. Because like, oh yeah, cool, thanks for reminding me of my rule, and it builds good faith. And I'm like, oh yeah, doesn't your guy give me -1 to hit? Wasn't that a thing? And it's just small little things of sportsmanship that can go a long way. But in order to do some of that, I use tokens personally. Some people like what's the game, like Othello, or like have like where it's like a lot of like white or black reversible chips, and they are good for dry erase markers. You can write your things down as you go. You can get little stickers. There's all kinds of stores all over the internet giving different tools for these kinds of things, and I highly suggest you get some tokens, because even worst case scenario, if you can't find the proper token with the right name because you bought a bunch of pre-made stuff from like the beginning of second edition like I did, and they don't necessarily carry over now, at least there's a marker there that's like, hey, I have a buff or something, let me go and jog my memory. Next, I keep seeing people pick bad combats, and I'll use myself as an example. Just this past Sunday, I got another game in person. It was great. I brought Stormcast. My opponent brought New Nighthaunt. It was for preparation for a tournament. I had my Karazai and a unit of Evocators on Drac Alliance, who I am a humongous fan of. They just do disgusting amounts of damage and have so many little extra rules and stuff added to them to do mortal wounds, rerolling charges. Very, very fun unit. Also a wizard. They get +1 to wound for their spell. I had Celestial Blades, which is another +1 to wound spell, thrown on my dragon. I had a Lord Castellan with, I gave them Master of Magic and Arcane Tome to make them a wizard. Got the buff spell. Also threw on the Lord Castellan's +1 to save on the dragon. Both units charged into a black coach. I got very excited and was like, oh, cool. Both these units have an equal chance of killing the coach. I wanted the dragon to do it because I had wanted to get it, going on its buff. So I'm like, oh, let's go for it. and my opponent made a lot of unrendable 4-up saves. I think I only put 3 damage on the thing, maybe 4 after a bunch of really good ward saves. And then my opponent went and attacked my Dracolions. Now, here's the thing. The dragon was on a 2-up save. The Dracolions were on a 4-up. I gave them a much easier target to kill in retaliation, where, again, the damage was equal as long as the unit's full, or comparable enough for what I was trying to do, because the Dracolions can do a lot of really nasty mortal wounds. They have D3 damage on the cats. I had a really good opportunity. It's very much worth the 280 points they are. And if one cat dies, all of a sudden my output goes down. If the dragon went down a level from being bracketed a little bit, which probably wasn't going to happen on a 2-up save that I could have put all out defense on as well, it was fine. And I put my Dracolions at risk when they didn't need to be. Because again, I in my dragon rolled all that I did max damage, max hits, max wounds. I rolled stupidly good, but then so did my opponent, and then our luck matched each other and evened out. And I shouldn't have had that gamble because I had set it up to have the Dracolions go first, but I got really excited to use my big old dragon to go and mess someone up. And thankfully, I lived. My 3 cats lived. I didn't take enough damage to have a cat die, and then the cats finished off the black coach. But it didn't have to be that close, and it didn't have to come down to dice rolls because I had set it up throughout all my other phases, and then I fumbled on the 1-yard line, and thankfully, a guy on my team, being the cats, picked up the ball and scored for me instead of my dragon. So again, picking combats where you've set up all these buffs, your units do equal damage, but one's more survivable than the other. Let that be the second unit to fight. Now, the third thing in the combat phase here is pile-ins. And it's not the glamorous thing that people think of in the combat phase, but I have won games based on how I pile in. And people have lost games horrifically based on not knowing pile-in rules. So, let's start off with second edition. You used to be able to pile into the nearest enemy model. It's very easy to pin a unit in place. You have 2 models touching in base contact on opposite sides of the model, and you make it so that the model in the middle just can't get closer to either side, and they're stuck. That's the easiest way to go about it, right? That was the problem everyone freaked out about. In third edition, the rule as it currently stands, because I know someone's going to go in the comments and say, Rocco, that's not what it is anymore, because it's the internet. As the rule stands, for third edition of Age of Sigmar, your unit can pile in to the nearest enemy unit. So you need to do, instead of models, 2 units on either side to, it's on my phone with my notes there, to get someone stuck. Now, what this means is you can slide along a unit and much more easily steal an objective that they were standing on. You could use that pile-in to get you closer in for setting up for your next turn. It's 3 inches of free movement. You should use it to go around things while you can, instead of just trying to get like your rows of models up close. You can do it and still do that. Just do it a little diagonally around the side, where then you can get more models touching on objectives. You can use the 3 inches to then, if you have long reach with a weapon, hit something on the other side. Some people get really sloppy with their positioning, and piling in is where you can go and take advantage of that. Also, piling in isn't its own phase. It's a combat phase, activation. When a unit this is in the rules, when a unit charges and is activated for combat, it gets a pile-in. You also get a pile-in move if you are within combat range of another enemy unit. Generally, that is within 3 inches in Age of Sigmar. Where it gets tricky, some units, like Sisters of Slaughter, have a 6-inch effective pile-in range, so they don't have to charge to get into combat. Now, that's really cool, and there are abilities, of course, that break the game. But our series has been talking about the generalizations of things. We're not bringing up Yetis from ogres. I'm not really bringing this up for Sisters of Slaughter. I want to talk about how if I make a charge move and then I activate that unit, it still gets to pile in. Even if there isn't an enemy unit there to pile in to, you would then pile in towards the nearest enemy unit. You might not actually get to hit anything, but then you take those 3 inches and it is free movement. And again, I keep saying that. What do I actually mean? So we've talked about screening in the past. We've talked about how it's very important to keep certain distances between the units that you find expendable versus the units you want to hit hard with. So when we charge, right? Because movement is we move. That's great. A unit moves 5 inches. It moves. It makes a charge. It can go up to another 12 inches at least before buffs apply, right? That adds into the effective range. It's movement and then what it charges, what it reaches out to. For shooting units, we view it as their movement plus the range of whatever weapon they have to either, whether it's a javelin, some kind of a bow, or a gun, whatever. That is their effective range. For melee units, because of the reach of your weapons and the new Galatian veterans rule where Galatian veterans can fight in 2 ranks, we have an effective range for combat. And we can also use all of this movement to move farther up the board towards where our opponents are, where their units need to be, and where we need our stuff to be there to kill their units. Just kill them. Now, if I have a 1-inch reach on my weapon, and I have my 3-inch pile-in, my unit is effective within 4 inches to hit something. And a lot of people don't think about that, and especially if we're fighting in 2 ranks now, that means I have even more models effective within that 1-inch bubble. And I can, between my movement, which should be like 5 inches, especially if I'm running charging, that could be like another 6 inches. And then I've got up to 12 inches of a charge, and then another 3 inches on a pile-in if I don't have any special fancy rule for that. 11 plus 12, that would be, again, 23, 24, 27 inches of movement total of a melee unit that can just book it. Will that always happen? No, because you're not always going to make a 12-inch charge to wrap around and do crazy stuff. But every inch matters with these pile-ins. Where, again, getting more units into combat, or like what I've done with my Deepkin, where I like using my Achillean King and my Turtle in tandem, where they're going to wipe whatever unit they touch, whichever unit goes first, right? And then, because I'm setting up for my later turns, especially my Always Strikes First turns with my Ideneth Deepkin army, whatever didn't go is going to get to move that extra 3 inches to get closer to wherever I need it to be. Even if it's setting up a run and charge turn on my battle round 2, or some other kind of thing, it is free movement and you should be taking it. And just, again, people don't think about blocking off objectives fully. And they give you that little bit to pile in your models. We're on round bases, so to be able to like push in and just toe tap onto an objective with just the rim of your base, you can get a little sneaky with it. And again, this isn't a gotcha moment. It is just taking your pile-in into consideration and realizing you could be scoring more points than your opponent and outnumbering them on places just because they gave you enough room to pile in because they had bad placement. Or you can pile in and reach around and hit the support hero because you had 2-inch range on your spears or your lances or your halberds, and you just whack them with it. It's really nice. And also, I want to now get into now that we hit about the 15-minute mark. Um, I want to throw in Battleshock because technically that's the last phase where it's Battleshock and you have you count your score, how many points you got. The biggest thing for me with Battleshock is command point management because there are some armies like Nighthaunt that will stop you from using the command point to automatically pass Battleshock. So that you don't have to worry about. That is again an outlier in this case. The biggest thing is for me remembering the auras of who can issue commands. You know, your unit champions can issue commands if they're alive. Some units have the elite keyword where they don't need a unit champion. You know, this is where like totems have an 18-inch range to issue commands. Your general has an 18-inch range. All other heroes generally have a 12-inch range. Again, unless there's some crazy thing or rule that lets them get around that. You need to be really careful on your bravery, being mindful of inspiring or sinister terrain if you're playing with terrain rules like you probably should, because AoS doesn't have a lot of terrain rules, but they can be okay, believe it or not. Um, and it's being smart on like, okay, cool, which unit can I afford to lose people at? And one of the things that I like doing in the Battle Shock phase is if I have just one model alive and I can afford to maybe lose other models other places, I will automatically pass the Battle Shock on that one singular model that's stuck in combat with my opponent because I am planning for the next turn ahead. Because if I get the turn, great. That unit is stuck in combat with my model. They can't redeploy when I send other stuff up to hit it. If I don't get the turn, great. My opponent has to waste resources killing one model. Whether it's giving up a spell to kill this one annoying thing instead of like my full unit of, I don't know, let's say Phoenix Guard or Hearthguard Berserkers or Bow Snakes or, uh, you know, Grimghast Reapers. So I don't just sound like an Order fanboy. Oh, I am, and that's okay. Um, my opponent has to waste a resource to kill that one singular model. You know, if they don't have magic that can do mortal wounds, because they're either not in range for an arcane bolt to do something, or they have you know other spells they want to cast that buff their army. It's like, do I want to waste it on an arcane bolt? That makes them have to make more choices. And as much as everyone's like happy that the game got a little more choice heavy, if we're playing this in a competitive sense, I need to make my opponent make as many hard choices as they can so that they eventually make the wrong choice. And whether that's do they waste a spell attempt to try to get that arcane bolt or get one of their buff spells off to give like a unit +1 to wound, which is huge. You know, do they waste all their shooting? Do they split shots to kill my one model who's going to be a jerk? And of course, because that's how dice work, when you split the shots, my singular model's going to live while they try to shoot their unit free. You know, and then that's shots that could have been going into more important things. And if they don't have any of that and they're stuck in combat with my model, which is even better, then they have to waste a whole combat activation trying to fight my model. And if I'm a Nighthaunt player that has some way to bring back models that can happen in the Battleshock phase or in my next hero phase or what have you, if I have a way to regenerate stuff as long as that one mini is there and alive, that's even more bang for my buck. So, again, for combat phase stuff, remember our buffs and debuffs for all of our stuff to avoid feels bad moments. Get some tokens or even scrap paper. There's so many rules in this freaking game. You're never gonna remember them all, and that's okay, because it's complicated. Because that part of the appeal of playing the game is it's hard. Even the easiest armies, there's a lot of buffs and things about where to put them right. Get something to help you. We need to pick our combats smartly. If you have a two units that do equal damage, but one is way more survivable, have that one go second. Use your pile-ins as the free movement that it is to get on objectives, to remember that even when you charge, you still get a pile-in move, as because it's just part of a combat activation that you get just from charging. Um, and remember, you could pile around full units now, as long as you're not equidistant between the two units. So you can pile along a unit to maybe hit a character that's nearby. That's a juicy target if you got the reach. And for Battleshock, be a little annoying. Plan for the next turn. Make it so that if you don't get the double turn, you're not burned because you made sure that one model was there holding up the whole works. Might save your game and give you a chance. And then if you do get the double turn, it stops them from redeploying and getting away from your stuff. It's a win-win. And again, if you don't get the double turn, your opponent has to find a way to get rid of that one annoying model. That's them having to make hard decisions and waste resources that they would much rather put elsewhere. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, now that I'm not leaning over the edge of my seat because I was hyped for this video, now I'll lean forward more. All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to class today. I hope you love this series on different mistakes that I see throughout every phase of the game and how to fix them and not do them yourselves. Like, subscribe, and as I like to say at the end of all of our videos, class dismissed. Bye. And don't forget to count your score too. That's probably important. Should have made the list, but I don't know. Bye.